I want to explain to you how the 1999 movie The Matrix explains how my compass that always points to a spot you pick works. So I make this compass, True North Compass, and it points to a spot you pick when you buy it. So wherever you go in the world, the red needle will always point in the direction of the thing that you care about. And the way that it works is actually what it looks like on the inside. There's a GPS chip here. And so it really will work anywhere in the world. There's a little motor that causes the hands to spin around and make sure that they always point in the same direction. Now, it's being a little wonky right now. You have to hold it flat. And so as I try to show you it, it's getting a little weird. So I don't know if you remember the movie The Matrix, but in it, humanity is being pursued relentlessly by murderous robots, right? Most of humanity has been enslaved inside the Matrix by the robots. And then additionally, the people who are outside the Matrix are hunted down by these robots called Sentinels, all right? And the humans have only one weapon that works against the Sentinels, and that is the electromagnetic pulse, the EMP. Now, this is a real thing that exists in the world. Now, we can't make them that small. The only time you see an EMP pulse strong enough to knock out a robot at any sort of distance is really with a nuclear bomb. But I don't think it's all that far-fetched to imagine in the future, they figured out how to make small EMP devices. The problem with the EMP device, and the problem with the EMP device in the real world, is that it's indiscriminate. It knocks out all electronics, not just the evil robots, right? And so in the movie, they get around this by saying every single system on the ship needs to be shut off before we can fire the EMP and kill the robots. Now, this becomes really important because towards the end of the movie, right at the climax, Neo is inside the Matrix. And so there's a system on the ship that is keeping him in the Matrix. And the Sentinels are attacking. And they can't fire the EMP until Neo is out of the Matrix. If they unplug him and turn it off, he'll die, right? And so it's this really dramatic moment. It's great. It's great. So the reason that this is important for the compass is this. So it's not enough to have a GPS chip to actually make this thing point. You need GPS to get your position on the surface of the Earth, right? But you also need to get your orientation with respect to north. And so this crazy digital compass actually has a real digital compass inside it as well. There's a little, it's called a magnometer, but a little digital compass right at the edge of the chip, right there, that actually measures the Earth's magnetic field and gives you an orientation relative to magnetic north. Problem is, when I first built this thing and had a little prototype that was working, I found that as soon as the hands were moving, my magnometer, my digital compass, gave me garbage data. And the problem is, the stepper motor, this guy right here, that controls the hands, makes the black hand point the distance, the red hand point the direction, it generates an electromagnetic field, not an EMP pulse, but same basic thing here, right? The magnets inside that are actually causing the motor to spin, and the electromagnetics particularly, they generate a field that gets picked up by the magnometer. Possibly you could maybe compensate for that, but the math is really tricky. This is a really tiny device, and I'm not that good at math. So I was really stuck for a long time, and I thought for a while that this basic approach of using physical hands that would spin was just not going to be workable, and that I'd maybe need a ring of LED lights or something like that instead. But then I thought back to The Matrix, and I realized that there was a way forward. So what you have to do is just shut it all off, just the way that they shut every system off in the Nebuchadnezzar to fire the EMP. Every 3 seconds or so, while this thing is on, the hands completely stop. The motor turns off completely. And it only happens for about 70 milliseconds or so. And in that time, I take a really fast measurement with the magnometer, which gives us the position relative to the magnetic north, right? Then the motor turns back on, the hands continue to move smoothly, and we know where we are. But you can't just make that measurement every 3 seconds. And any more than 3 seconds, I found that it was really it was really causing the hand to be very jittery. It wasn't a good experience, So, but you can't just make a measurement every 3 seconds for your position in space. The hand would just be really laggy. It just wouldn't work. So what we do is there's another chip on there, actually in the same housing. There's a little gyroscope, a digital gyroscope. And gyroscopes are also great at giving you your position in space. They can measure how things rotate. But a gyroscope doesn't know what direction you're pointing when you first turn it on, and they also tend to drift over time. So they aren't really great unless you very carefully calibrate them, and you almost always need some sort of feedback. If you're trying to use the gyroscope to know where you are, orientation in space, over the course of like minutes, but they're great over a few seconds. They're very, very reliable. So what happens is that every 3 seconds, the motor turns off, makes that magnometer measurement. And then in between that and the next magnometer measurement, the gyroscope is giving us the fine-grained values we need to make sure that this needle is moving super smoothly and accurately and always pointing in that proper direction. And then if the gyroscope does drift a little bit over the course of 3 seconds, it gets corrected when we get the magnometer reading, and everything is good as gravy. And so that's how the Matrix showed me the way forward, showed me how to solve this problem. And while I wasn't able to use the power of electromagnetic radiation to defeat killer robots, I'd like to think that Keanu Reeves would be at least impressed by the basic approach.